hi guys, welcome back. Greg Everett here with Ursula Garza, fresh back from Qatar for her lovely quick vacation trip. She flew all the way to Qatar just to go to a day spa and get a mani-pedi, sit in the sand or whatever. And
You're an asshole. You are an asshole.
Just kidding.
We just had this discussion.
She went there for work. She doesn't do it for enjoyment.
These things are painful. Like I'm flying in, like I went to Malaysia. It took 2 days to get there. I was there for 2 days, and I flew back for 2 days. And of course, for 2 days, you're just in meetings.
Haven't they ever heard of Skype?
Yeah, but it's it's IWF political stuff, and Skype didn't work because they want to see you.
Yeah, Skype has video.
Yeah, but yeah, I'll just take some headshots, some glamour shots, and send them over.
There you go.
With a speech, and then went to that was the Constitutional Congress in Malaysia before, and then I'm going to the most desirable places. Usually, like they're actually pretty nice cities once you get there. It's just the traveling that's a bitch. But I went to Tbilisi before that, and so I just got back from Qatar. I was in Qatar, as they say. I was in Doha, and again, flew for a day and a half. Was there for almost a day and a half, and then flew back for a day, and then got stuck in JFK for 12 hours, which was painful after 30 hours of travel. But I get these accusations of it being for fun, and I'm like, oh yeah, because that's a blast.
Yeah, that's what everyone wants to do on their weekend.
Yeah, well, they still are working, but I mean, it's worth it. We're really just trying to advance the ideas that we have in USA Weightlifting for what the sport should look like, including the anti-doping question, and the only way we can, and other questions of operation, and the only way we can do that really is to have a voice in the IWF, and the only way to have a really strong voice in the IWF is to somehow get on the executive board. And so I am a candidate to run for one of the executive board seats, 2 of which are allocated for women, and with not a whole lot of women really involved at high levels in their national federations, my chances improve just because of the lack of competition. And so, like, taking advantage of that as it stands now, because that won't always be the situation, and trying to get in now is really part of the necessary agenda for us to have some influence and to forward again, our own concerns and have solutions that are beneficial and in line with USA Weightlifting philosophy. So that's the whole gist of it. My next trip is to Iran.
Is that near Iran?
It is.
Just kidding.
Right next to it.
I'm so white. Okay, real quick, guys. If you're weightlifters and you need life insurance because you're all going to die eventually, what's the saying?
Thanks for the good news, Greg.
The saying is what? I plan to live forever, and so far it's working. Eventually it will probably stop working. But you might find that you're going to get ripped off for life insurance rates because according to your BMI, you're clinically obese. And of course,
Thanks, Greg.
That's not true.
Well, this is turning out to be a great morning.
Hey, I'm defending these people who are large and muscular and who get screwed because the BMI is the stupidest measurement ever created by quote unquote science.
At my lightest starving body weight when I was competing, I was barely in the normal range.
Exactly. So what I'm saying is go to healthiq.com/catalyst, and these guys actually have some scientific information proving that people who strength train and eat properly and those kinds of things, despite having high BMIs, are healthier and therefore should pay less for life insurance. So go check those guys out, healthiq.com/catalyst, and see if you can help out on your funeral expenses. Okay, let's talk about the American Open real quick. For those of you who aren't in competitive weightlifting, American Open just happened. Let's see, this is going to come out tomorrow, so it was was last weekend, right?
Well,
it would be 9 days ago or so that it finished, right? Am I thinking of my future and past relationship correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
That sounds right. It already happened. That much I know.
Yes. For real now, as we're talking, it already happened. Sometimes things haven't happened yet, but we have to talk about them as if they've already happened. It's all very confusing.
That's happened.
Thank God we're so intelligent we can manage these sorts of space-time continuum questions. All right, so what were your thoughts on the American Open that you'd like to share with the world?
Well, I first just wanted to congratulate Tim McRae. He was inducted into the USA Weightlifting Hall of Fame, and he was a contemporary of mine. When I competed, he went to the 92 and 96 Olympics. He was just a phenomenal weightlifter. I think 142.5 snatch, 67.5 body weight. Just really, I mean, some of the guys from that era that I lifted with were really, I mean, you have one with your group, Matt Foreman, but some just really, not just great guys, but great lifters, great athletes, and he was one of them. Vernon Patel was his main competitor, who I'm really close with as well, who lives out in Maui, and to have us all there, like we were all kind of sitting in the front row with Karen, Cheryl, and Carissa, like, you know, a bunch of the female Olympians, all sitting there waiting for him to get his award, and it was just really nice. You know, we talk about weightlifting family, and I think I made a post about, you know, I'm going there. You just can't even really express what it feels like to go back, and people that you've seen for literally, you know, 10, 20, 30 years sometimes. And these are the only places that you see them, and you get to catch up. Of course, we're all busy, we're all coaching, we're all running around, but there's just a natural connection that you have with the people that you're around because of your love of the sport. And so that, you know, whole weightlifting family, as part of our weightlifting life, you realize how real it is when you're in that environment again. I say this, and it's a genuine sentiment, but I feel the most relaxed and the best and the happiest when I'm at weightlifting meets. And I know that seems all hooby-gooby and sentimental, but it's true. And I mean, there's no place else that for me, and I would think you feel the same. And of course, we're all there, and we have a competitive streak, and we're trying to beat each other, and we're all talking shit to each other, but we're joking and having fun while we're doing something that is serious, but still so much a part of our lives that the connections that you have with other people kind of override everything else.
Yeah, so I think what's interesting in the last few years, though, is that when you go to these events, there's still kind of this core of people, which is becoming smaller and smaller as a relative number, who are really part of that weightlifting family, who are really 100% into that life and that sport, and who all know each other and respect each other. And then there's a bigger and bigger and bigger periphery of people who kind of come and go year to year and never really, you know, they kind of dip their toe in, but they never really jump in all the way. And I talked about it with a few different people at this Americans. And of course, we who have been involved for a little longer than some, it's always kind of this like curmudgeonly bullshit about, you know, we used to come here and know everybody, and now I don't know 80% of these people. But that aside, not just complaining wise, it's interesting to see how that demographic has changed to the point where you do have the greater percentage of the people there, both coaches and athletes, who are just kind of visiting temporarily. You know, they're not really there
perennially.
They're not totally committed, and it's a very different dynamic. It's a very different feel. You know, in a session, for example, where, like you said, you know, we're over there competing with each other, but we're talking shit and having fun and laughing and sharing a platform, whatever. And then you kind of look around and it's like, you know, what are these guys doing over here? And, you know, they're over there the first lifter in a session, but they're being assholes to everybody, trying to trick them and, pull all these shenanigans and just being dicks. And you're like, you know what? This is the time where you should be taking in as much of this stuff around you and learning from these people who have been here for years and decades, not treating them like your competition and walking around like you're gonna show them something. Just like, you need to settle down a little bit and maybe enjoy it and learn something.
Well, I think the longer you're in the sport, we've all had our ego handed to us. You know what I mean? I remember one year my team, it was
not
like
to toot my own
bloodbath.
horn, but I feel like I never went into it with a big ego. I think I was. I came up in an environment where I was taught right on or right away that's just not what you do.
Yeah, and it's not gonna help you blend into the community at all. There's a weightlifting culture that precedes a lot of the newer people coming in. And I mean, I'm happy that there's tons of new people coming in, but I find myself, like you say, kind of holding on very tightly to that core of the people that I've known for, at a minimum, 10 years, So you want to obviously invite and help and do whatever you can for all of the people that are coming in that are new, because some of them might be around in 10 years. Let's hope they all are, and they're all part of that larger community by then. But I do find myself clinging more tightly to the ones that I've known forever. Like that's your family, and then you're meeting new people all the time, and you're hoping that you're going to see them again for the next 4 or 5 years, and then they'll become part of that larger weightlifting family. But yeah, it's an interesting point that you make. There was a guy, I was coaching Spencer, and there was who did great. Spencer did great. He broke PRs, and we let him eat. He's a 77.
Is he officially the skinniest lifter in USA Weightlifting?
Right, and it doesn't even matter what weight class he's in. Like, I mean, I think up until he's 94 and he's like twice his body size, he actually look like a real weightlifter. But, Spencer has always boggled my mind because he's incredibly weak to lift heavy weights. But anyways, which says something about, the changes to his technique, because he's a lot more efficient nowadays. Still weak off the floor, which was my problem too. So he always has to have, a special pull routine just for him so that he can actually separate bars from the floor. But, he's really quite an impressive athlete when you look at his lack of strength. But in any case, I know that doesn't sound like a compliment, but it is.
I know what you mean.
Coming from me, it's absolutely a compliment, because he's maximizing or optimizing the strength that he does have. And, it's like he barely moves it off the floor, and then he cleans it, and you're like, wow, that's impressive. Because I thought 5 times during that pull that he was not going to make it.
Right.
And actually had the time to think 5 times. But there was a guy that was on a platform next to him when we were warming up, and the guy was cramping.
Oh yeah, I remember I was in that session too.
Yeah. So I asked Caleb Williams, who was helping back there with Spencer too, because they trained together in Georgia, and just to check, like, what are these guys' numbers? I'm tempted to help him, but I'm also not going to help someone beat us. So, well, not at that moment, maybe later. But it turns out that he was nowhere, he was no threat. So I go over to the coach and I tell him, this is an old solution that I used to use with Chad and Derek, and it's kind of an on-the-spot thing, because usually we try to rehydrate well. So I was like, I went up to him. They were trying to massage out the cramp, which isn't going to work. And I was like, you can do some pressure point stuff, but that doesn't always work. And I said, why don't you give him a concoction of salt and sugar water, and it should subside. It might take a couple minutes, but it should subside if it's going to. Like, that's right. Kind of your better option than trying to massage it. And this guy was in a lot of pain. I mean, he was on the floor, like gritting his teeth. Writhing. Yeah. He was writhing. And this was in the warm-up. He hadn't even taken an attempt out on the platform. And so I tell them before he even goes out for his first attempt, and the guy kind of dismisses me. He's like, well, if it was a cramp, wouldn't it be over his whole body?
What?
And I was just like, I was just like, no. And I just walked off. It's like, obviously, I just gave you a piece of advice that would really help you right now, potentially. And even, I mean, it's kind of your only recourse. And
well, do you think he had any idea who you were? Olympian.
I don't know.
I think that's part of it, is he just thinks he's some random person. Well,
I don't know. Well, I mean, I'm coaching the guy that's ahead of his guy that won the snatch.
Oh, no, I know, but that's what I'm saying, is that these people are kind of in their own little bubble and aren't because they're not really that deeply involved, they don't know. Like, people were not allowing Kendrick into the warm-up room because they didn't know who he was. You know, that's my point, is that...
No, I got ideas.
If you were in the back and that guy came up to you and gave you a piece of advice, what would you do?
Well, you know, if I was in his situation and it looked pretty bleak for my guy to even go out and do his first attempt, I'd probably do whatever anybody said.
But see, I don't believe that. You would evaluate that advice based on what you knew of that guy and whether or not you thought it was legitimate.
Well,
so that's my point. True, is if he didn't know who you were, then well, yeah. But if someone came up to you and said, "Oh, he's cramping," I think you should hit him in the fucking eye with a hammer.
Well, I mean,
you're not going to be like, "Oh, well, I'm desperate. I'll try that."
When I was at the nationals, or the university nationals, and I was doing my little, and I'm not going to say it, my workout of the day.
Oh, God damn it, Ursula. Just call it a workout. Fuck.
I was doing air squats.
Every single workout is a workout of the day. That's the workout you're doing that day.
It was my workout of that day. And so I was doing air squats.
Beat you up the next time I see you.
Greg's going to fire me. Y'all are going to have to all call in to keep me on this podcast.
I'm going to fire you now because you don't even turn your phone off.
I didn't know it was going to ring. Nobody ever calls me at home.
I didn't know it was going to ring.
Oh shit, I just turned it off.
This is why we can't have nice things, everyone.
Okay, I hung up on them. Does that work? This guy was telling me how to air squat. And I did not listen to him, so I guess you're right. Well, first of all, because he was fucking wrong. But anyways, so back to this guy that's writhing on the floor. I tell his coach, like, give him this, salt water concoction. And another guy that I helped named Will Black was hanging around, and he heard me, and he ran to get salt and sugar packets. And he brought them back. And I was like, forget it, the guy's not listening. And he was out there doing his first 2 attempts, which he missed. I mean, you could tell. I mean, like, literally on the second clean and jerk, he fell from the top of the stairs into his coach's arms. Like, he couldn't even walk down the stairs. So then I'm sitting there watching, and he comes out for his third clean and jerk. Nothing. Just does the lift. And I'm thinking, this poor guy, he's got the like guts like crazy. But literally does the clean and jerk, walks off the stage. Like, the last 2 attempts, he could barely get off the stage.
Yeah.
And comes in. Well, I found out that in between, Will had done what I told his coach to do between the second and third attempts with minimal time, and it still worked. So imagine if they had done what I fucking said at the beginning of the session.
Right? The world would be so much better off if they just did what you said. Just saying. And so then, like, here you are trying to help someone. I don't usually help unsolicited. It's just not my nature. Like, I just sit back and watch. Unless you ask for my help, I don't help. Because I don't want to overstep bounds, and I don't want to intervene where I'm not needed or wanted. Sure.
And so, for me to come forward was really just my concern for the athlete. Like, I was just, I mean, it was awful to see him in that much pain. And especially when you knew it could be avoided.
Right.
And, I mean, I've had my athletes cramp before. Derek's cramped, Chad's cramped. Like, when they, and I had mentioned, I was like, well, if he's probably dehydrated, I might want to give him some water. He's like, no, he didn't cut weight. But that's not my point. You can be fucking dehydrated even if you didn't cut weight. You just didn't drink enough fucking water. Like, that happens too. People are dehydrated all the time.
Yeah. Well, especially between snatch and clean and jerk. People don't hydrate between those two, and then imagine that. They feel like shit during clean and jerks.
Well, and if it's one of your first events, you're probably sweating more than normal just because of nerves. Like, you just don't even realize it.
Nerves don't sweat.
Shut up. So, I mean, you may have just had a little bit more water loss than you realized, and just not replenishing electrolytes. If you're just just drinking water. But in any case, he turned out okay. I mean, he got a clean and jerk, and then the coach comes up to me. And, I mean, talk about ego. He extends his hand to me and said, "Thanks so much for helping. You were right." And I just shook his hand and said, "I know." And I kept doing my thing. That's my story of me helping someone. And no ego, right?
Yeah.
Perfect example.
But,
yeah. Well, yeah, I thought the American Open, we had a lot of complaints about having the 3A sessions going at a time, and that's something we've discussed before and we try to avoid. And sometimes the sheer number and trying to start those sessions later in the afternoon, having to fit in all previous sessions before a session goes. Like this, there's going to come a point where we're going to either have to decide to limit numbers some other way that is predictable, I think, or move to a 4-day event, which so far has been shelved.
You can't. It's hard enough for people to get time off work and be gone for 3 days, let alone 4.
I know, that's the thing. But I mean, if you ran all C and below sessions or D plus sessions on that day before it starts, the thing is that moves then technical and verification of entries to a Wednesday,
right,
and so
which means,
really for the officials, it's a nightmare.
Yeah, you can't
because we can all show up on Fridays.
You can't do it perfectly when you have 400 to 500 people. There's no way around that.
I think 660 and like 600, about 600 competing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's better than 900 from the year before.
Sure.
But I mean, the American Open Series concept is really meant to kind of try to disperse some of those people around, so they're not having to travel into the American Open necessarily. Raising the totals will. The thing is, every time we raise the totals, it seems like more people meet those totals.
But see, then you could argue that that's exactly what needs to happen because it's pushing people to be
for performance,
better.
Right? Yeah. Well, and we keep seeing that happening, so we keep bumping them up. And there's always a little, ruffling that happens. Everybody gets upset for a second. Like, what is it? I think Steve Galvan one time last year when we raised all the totals and said, "Congratulations, you are no longer a national level lifter." I was like, that was an asshole move. It's funny as
Well, but I mean, it's fair. You should have to reach a certain level, and if the competition is better, that level is going to increase.
And seriously, like up until last year, I could hit all those totals at like 46 years old.
Yeah.
No
one is entitled to lift at a national level meet. You got to earn it. And if the idea of having to earn it and it being difficult upsets you, then you should quit anyway.
Then you're probably not national level material. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, I want to play in the World Series, but you know what? I'm shitty at baseball, so I'm not going to fucking complain about it because I'll never be there. I'm not going to ask them to change the rules so we can all go play in the World Series.
Well, and I think the thing is, we had such a small pool of lifters before that lower totals still didn't bring in that many people. Now that the pool of lifters has increased, I think our membership is over 26,000. God, when I got on the board in 2009, we were like around 4,000. So, I mean, the whole issue that we're handling is just like how to manage growth. I mean, it's a great problem to have, but that's what we're looking at. And we, tried different things and different qualifying processes, and nobody likes because they don't know to the last minute whether they're going. That was the most effective one, but nobody liked it.
I liked it fine.
Yeah, well, I think people who aren't worried about it, like people who are basically their lifters are in the top 15 in the country, they like it fine. Yeah. It's people that are like, number 35, 45 in that session that don't like it because they don't know whether they're going until last minute. And at number 45, you would never make the cut because if we cut it off at 25, you're just not going to be in that group. So,
well, get better.
Yeah, nationals is going to be a little tougher and should get smaller. And we just keep adjusting, right, to the new questions and problems. And this one of the problems that we saw. This was the 3A sessions running at one time, and going in, we knew that it was going to be unpopular, particularly amongst coaches, which obviously I'm one of the coaches that it affects.
Yeah.
And so, but we'll just keep plugging along and trying to come up with solutions. To make the events better and better. But I thought the American Open overall went pretty well. I mean, I think it seems like more international lifters than we've had in the past. We had a Cuban, a Colombian, and the 77s. Mm-hmm. That made it more competitive, considering that our 77s were kind of absent, with Tatum and Coop moving to the 85s.
Seriously, everybody is an 85 now. Everybody's an 85 and a 105.
Yeah.
That's those are the new popular weight.
The new 77 and
it's fashionable.
Yeah, it's the new 77 and 94s.
And there's no supers.
Yeah.
I'm going to gain 10 pounds and be a super. It'll be easier. All right. Well, we ready for our first question?
No.
No.
We're not.
Okay, well,
no,
then stop sitting there in awkward silence and say something.
I was letting you talk and not interrupting you. See, I can't win. I can't win, people.
Oh, Jesus. Get over yourself.
I can't even. And I'm not even white, and I can't even.
Okay. If you have something to say, spit it out, woman.
The importance of staff, Greg.
Okay, there you go. Run with it.
So, one of the things I wanted to stress, as you're developing as a coach, is that and this was a mistake I made, because I don't think I developed a broad enough staff for some of the first events that I coached at, where I had big teams. I teach all my athletes how to count attempts. That's kind of a cornerstone. And I bring this up because Spencer has Power and Grace, and they had me teaching Jordan Dela Cruz, the little 53 junior lifter that's really, really good. We were teaching her how to count attempts. And it's funny because they were kind of quizzing her as they were going through, and it would be like 31, what'd you get, Jordan? 38.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah, I saw you. I saw you guys at the table, and I was giggling behind you.
Yeah. It's not, national events isn't necessarily the place you want to teach somebody, but this was a B session, because Spencer, put himself in a B session, which was maddening, but, we were teaching her how to count attempts. That's really important. She didn't want to learn. She had this, I don't really want to, they're making me, and I went on this whole spiel about, if she's going to be a real weightlifter, you need to know how to do this. What if sometimes you're coach and you have to do it by yourself, or you have to go to some event and, God forbid, there's nobody there for you. This is something that, as an athlete, you should understand this process.
Yeah.
You don't just sit there and wait for somebody else to fuck up. You should know what's going on. I'm not saying that, you should have a good coach to do it for you. You should. But absent of that, you may want to know what the fuck's going on. I was never an athlete that I was going to put everything into the hands of someone else and just say, I don't need to know these things. This is part of the sport. You should understand counting attempts and strategy and all of that kind of stuff at some point. And it starts with counting attempts. So some of my our first big nationals that we had a full team, I had counters on every lifter. So that allowed me to coach. And all they were responsible for is giving me feedback on where we were at, how many attempts out. But that's, if you don't train people how to do that, and you need to train them how to do it in a way that aligns with the way you do it, so that way there's no complication, you can communicate across a room. Because when there's 3A sessions, that's what's going to happen. And I just wanted to say something about, there's this idea that coaching is so hard, only I can do it. Well, it's not true. It's just not. It's not that hard. And you can train other people to do it. You may be better at it, or you may think you're better at it, or you may be better at some aspect of it. But all of these basics that people should learn how to do, like counting attempts and understanding strategy in competition, are vital. That's vital information for you to pass on and teach the people around you who are going to help you coach. So all the lifters that have already gone should be able to step into your role if you need them. And in fact, I had to see the doctor on Saturday morning, and by Sunday I was in bed, and I had my lifters going earlier. Last year I had strep throat for the American. I didn't show up at all, but I had already started getting sick early in the week and was trying to stave it off. By Sunday I was toast, and I had two lifters, and this guys that were my staff took over. And I'm not saying that's going to happen. But if it does, you have to have the confidence to know that you've trained some people to do what you do, and that they can do it well. And so I see a lot of teams that have some pretty high profile staffs. I mean, I would consider the people you have pretty high profile with Matt Foreman and yourself and Amy.
They're pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I have people with somewhat less experience but are still coming up, like Steve Galvan and Jack Gaines, and I have a new guy named David Griffin, the one that I talked about before, that is talentless as a lifter, but is turning out to be a fantastic coach.
And you just can't stop talking about how talentless he is.
I know.
I see why he sticks with you.
Yeah, no. Well, because he's learning. I think that's why he sticks with me. He challenges me quite a bit, but he's... Yes, no. He's getting better. He breaks PRs like every week and then bitches the whole time. So
yeah. Well, we're very lucky, or I'm very lucky that we have, the people that we have to help at these meets, because like you said, if you're at a meet and you're a coach that has 1 or 2 lifters, you're fine. It doesn't really matter. If you've got a team of 8 to 15 lifters, you're going to have conflicts. You're going to have difficulty, especially when there are multiple platforms running at once, you're going to have conflicts eventually. And no matter how good of a coach you are, you can't do a good job counting for 2 different lifters on 2 different platforms. It's doable, but it's miserable. And, something is not going to go right.
Well, I mean, the whole process is so dynamic. Like, somebody pulls out of the event, somebody changes their opener, your count changes. Like, you've got to...
Well, your count's going to change always.
That's why coaches hang around the fucking table. They're waiting for shit to happen.
Well, and that's why it's nice, like Amy, just as an example, Amy is Jessica's coach. I help here and there, but she does all the real coaching. But when we go to meets, Amy wants to be at the platform with Jess. She doesn't want to be stuck at the board the whole time.
Right.
And I completely understand that, because I like to do that too. So it's nice, I'll go up there and I'll count and then just communicate that back to Amy. So Amy can stay there with Jess the whole time.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then, we have this arrangement now. Like, for example, this year at the Americans, we had 2 lifters and 2 A sessions at the same time. We had Jess and Snow going together. So, Matt was there. So I said, Matt, please go count for Jess so Amy can coach her, and I'm going to handle Snow over here. And so it wasn't a disaster. It worked perfectly fine. And so we're lucky that we have those people who know it. I didn't have to teach Matt how to do it. He's been doing it longer than me.
Right.
And it's nice too, honestly. Like, I talked about this with Mike Gray, who coaches 2 of our lifters down in San Diego, Sam and Susan. It's nice as a coach also when you're up there at the board and you're counting, and like you said, it's very dynamic. Things are changing and it's chaotic at times. It's nice to kind of have that person where you can bounce things off of.
Sure.
It's even, I've never made a mistake in a competition that affected anything, but at the same time, it's very reassuring to have someone else there kind of backing you up.
Sure.
So oh my God, I'm not totally fucking somebody up.
Well, and when you're counting, there's some guesstimating going on.
Oh yeah.
You're like, somebody could be, you're counting them as 2 attempts. Well, it could be 3 attempps. It could be 1 attempt. It could be none if they bump up 10 kilos.
It could be 6 if they end up missing all 3 attempps and they've got 2-minute clocks. It sucks.
Right. So now you've got to count in the 2 2-minute clocks, and so it's not an exact science. It's experience and really good guessing and knowing the lifters. One of the things I think that's challenging for us now is that's because there's so many new lifters that we don't know. I mean, we all know which coaches put in low openers and bump up. But when you have a bunch of new lifters and new coaches, you don't know which of them are going to do that.
Well,
and so it makes it a little harder.
It does. And not only that, but now that there is more competition, you have in these sessions, there is much less of a spread in weights than there used to be. So you will have 6 people all lifting 80. Mm-hmm. And that's where it gets crazy, because that could be 1 attempt. Because 5 of those 680s could bump to 81 or 82, and you're opening at 81, for example, or they could all miss 3 times. So that gets crazy. Where you have a lifter over there who's opening at 2 kilos heavier than where the competition bar is currently, and they're fucking freaking out because they still have 4 more warm-up attempts.
Right.
And you have to keep them calm. Like, no, you're fine. We still have 15 minutes. Even though it sounds like your weight is not.
Yeah, they don't understand. The bar's not like if it's at 80 and you're opening at 83, that you may not be anywhere near next.
Well, and the other thing too is with all the new lifters is there are a lot more misses. I had a guy text me, the guy that used to train with us who came up in East Germany as a weightlifter, and he was like, "Is it just me, or are there like a really unusually high number of misses at these meets?" I said, "No, it's there are more misses than there used to be." And I think it's because there are less experienced coaches and athletes, and they're not quite as good yet at selecting openers, especially, but then attempt weights, period. Like you'll see crazy high openers, and you see people bombing out on their openers, and that they're not even close. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know if it's from cutting weight poorly, or just from not having any idea of what they're truly capable of, or from nerves, or what it is. But I mean, maybe
inconsistent technique. Like maybe they can do that on some days,
but more recently, I've been kind of padding my counts more than I normally would because of that. Whereas I might say, okay, this guy's going to make it and jump 3 or 4 kilos. I'm going to say, well, there's a good chance that half these people are going to miss this attempt. So I'm going to count these as 2 instead of 1.
Well, especially if you're watching their warm-ups. Well, if you're watching their warm-ups and they look like shit in their warm-up, well, of course, God, Derek looked like crap in his warm-ups. It may have been one of the worst warm-ups I've ever seen in the history of weightlifting. And then he went out there and almost broke a damn record.
I saw that with a couple people this last weekend where I was like, there is no way she's going to make this lift.
Yeah, but here you've got professional weightlifters versus amateur weightlifters. Like professional weightlifters will get their shit together on the competition platform. Like they just do. Yeah. You don't have to freak out with them. But with new lifters, I mean, it affects their confidence right away when they start missing in warm-ups.
Right.
I mean, some of them know, but if this is your first national event, you can imagine that you're probably shitting your pants if you've just missed your last 3 warm-ups and you have to go up in weight and you can't bring the bar back down because it's already gotten almost to that weight.
Yeah.
And the fact that the coaches don't even know, like when they see their athlete fucking up, they don't even like realize, well, maybe I should bring down the opener.
Right.
They get married to a number. It's one thing to choose attempts for somebody who's trying to make a world team, make a Pan Am team, get a stipend. Like there are different reasons that we pick different attempts that sometimes people don't understand. And I mean, I know that with like, Amy felt really compelled to justify why I don't think you have to fucking justify what you're doing to anybody.
Well, like, what you're doing. Because a bunch of fucking armchair warriors were getting on her like, why didn't you just go to 114 for the win? People. It's like, you know what?
Well, because
there's a reason that you're sitting at home watching this on the computer and we're here actually coaching and lifting. Right. So why don't you settle down?
Right. I mean, sometimes people don't understand, like when somebody have a basket full of medals, like another medal isn't the only thing. I mean, we got the same thing with Derek when they're like, you could have opened up just right over what everybody clean and jerked and won.
No one gives a shit about an American Open gold medal at that stage, though.
Well, sometimes even national gold medals go to the wayside when your goal is something beyond that, like making a world team or making a Pan Am team, or like you have different, or making an Olympic team. Like you have other different level lifters their coaches take different approaches to choosing their lifts.
Yep.
For beginner lifters, your strategy should be, we're going to open at something that we're absolutely certain they can make, and we're going to try to go 3 for 3 in the snatch and 3 for 3 in the clean and jerk, because you're trying to develop a consistency. You're learning how to compete, and you want them to learn how to be successful on the competition platform. Then you move into, like, we're learning to compete, and we're going to try to beat people. And so we're going to be a little bit more fluid in how we choose our second and third attempts. Or we're going to try to break PRs, and so we're going to, base our second and third attempts on that. But, I mean, going in and saying, okay, we're going to try to place the highest we can at my first national competition, I think that's why we see a lot of these bomb outs, because they're going in, they're opening really close to their maxes, like 95%, 97%, or with their max.
Oh, yeah. No, that happens all the time. People opening with their PRs.
And then they're looking at it like, well, I have 3 chances to make it. Right. Well, I mean, now you're not even using your attempts wisely. And you're not even using your attempts to make as many as possible. And you need to learn how to, maximize that. And then you can go in and try to do bigger things. I don't know. I just don't think that a lot of the coaches are basing the strategy of selecting their attempts on the platform based on the level of the athlete.
Yeah.
They're getting to the national event and saying, okay, we're going to take out as many people as we possibly can. And then they make one fucking attempt. Well, now you didn't do shit. And you've taught your lifter that it's okay to miss a bunch of attempts on the platform. That's not a big deal.
Right.
But it is. It is. The reason that the lifters that are at the top and get to go 2 for 6 is because they've already gone through that whole process with their coaches. Right? They didn't just start with, I'm going to go for a national record on my second attempt.
Yeah.
They actually learned how to compete at some point.
Not to sound like even more of a dick than I actually am, but if you're jockeying for 39th to 37th place, there's no point in doing that kind of crap. If you're in the mix for a medal, you get more aggressive. If that's your goal, like we just talked about, you get more aggressive if you have a specific goal for specific numbers. But if you are, in the D session, winning the D session, it doesn't mean anything. Why don't you go on there and try to make lifts? And like Ursula said, especially early on, you need to build that competition confidence and build that routine, that sense that you're going to go out there and have a plan and be able to execute when it matters. If you go in there from day one and you're going 2 for 6 at every single meet, guess what you get really good at doing? Going 2 for 6.
Yeah.
And
it becomes the basic acceptable. Like, this is acceptable.
Right.
You hear people say, well, I totaled. But that's the minimum that you should do.
Yeah.
That's not like a success.
Well, and if all you're doing is totaling, that total should mean something.
Right.
If you said, well, I went 2 for 6 and I made a total and I won, then cool. That might have been the right call. If you went 2 for 6 and totaled and that made you second to last in your weight category, then maybe that wasn't the best strategy. So, but you know what? Everyone can do whatever they want. You guys do what you want.
Right.
I don't care. Except that it fucks up the rest of us when we have to sit and watch 12 people miss 2 to 3 attempts and slow our own warm-ups down. So if you're not going to do it for yourself, do it for everyone else.
Yeah. No. I'm trying to. I know it doesn't sound so friendly, but it's some advice. I get people asking me a lot about how to choose attempts with beginners, and I'm like, just be conservative. Don't reach for the moon yet. Let them learn. First, you got to know what it's like to be on that platform. Just like the whole process of going to your first local meet. I take the same approach for somebody going to their first national meet. The problem is when you get somebody really talented who really does have a chance to do something, or like in our case, that we take a team and we want everybody to get as high as possible in placing because it's all points. And I think that can kind of skew. Even I've been kind of felt the pressure of that with somebody who wasn't prepared.
Right.
To do. So, we're all, Greg's not fallible, but I certainly have been. And then in hindsight, you're like, you know what? I should have just stuck to what I know is right for that athlete. I shouldn't have I should have just taken that. And that's when it becomes an individual sport. You got to take the individual athlete and frame things around that athlete, not around the team yet.
Yeah.
And that becomes hard when you're a competitive team.
My thing with the team though is that I always am focused on that individual athlete. I want them to do as well as possible. I don't look at the team points. I don't look at the team points, period. I just wait until they announce the medalists at the end.
Right. Just
let the chips fall
where they may.
Yeah, the better your lifters do individually, the better your team does collectively. So, if you start looking at it backwards, you end up, with lifters who are pissed off at you because maybe you're steering them in a different direction for the sake of team points, which ultimately, really that should not be the primary motivator. It's cool. Right. I liked winning the national championship. I want to win more of them. But I want to do it because I've helped my lifters get better and do the best they can, rather than strategizing specifically to win championships. So
and I think that's when we look at like the U.S. team and we go on international trips and the team gets this lecture about how we're there for the team and it's all about the team and the lifts that they're doing are going to be chose based on the team. I think you unwrap that individualistic approach that is, I know this is going to sound kind of melodramatic, but it's an American that concept, this individualism in terms of a value, that actually drives people, it motivates people to do better because it's about them.
Right.
And in our society, that is, I think, a more reasonable approach because people are willing to really fight for themselves in a way that they may not fight for others.
Yeah, and
especially if they don't really like everybody. When you put together a national team, not everybody on the team loves each other, and there may only be one beneficiary at the end of the team effort. Some of the guys
that's the
are
tricky part.
Team players. Yeah.
Is if you have 8, well, now it's going to be 8 for both, but 7 to 8 people trying to earn team points, for the Olympics, for example, and you're only going to get 1 or 2 of those people going. Most of the people on that team know whether or not they have a legitimate chance. And so if you remove that ability of them to really go and be aggressive and lift as much as they possibly can and force them
for themselves,
them to lift specifically to earn points to send what they know will be someone else to the Olympics, you've just you've completely killed their motivation. And the thing is it's a tricky situation because, say, for you do want to earn points, you do want to earn spots for these things, and that is important. But I do think I agree with you that if you go in there, number one, people should have pride in representing their country, but you can do that as an individual. You can go and say, I want to do the best that I possibly can for myself, but also to represent my country. The better I do, the better I make U.S. weightlifting look, right? And by that, in that way, you are going to earn more points ultimately and get those spots anyway. So I do feel that it's kind of strange to kind of, it's like you're reining people in, and it ends up being counterproductive to some extent rather than encouraging people.
Right. Well, and then you're also working to sometimes a minimum. Like here's a sport where it's all about optimizing and working to a maximum. And I remember at the 14 Worlds, Derek did 45 or something as an opener, and they were going to try to make us go to 48.
Right.
Like there are some meets where 48 would be a good lift, but at that shape that he was in, he had was ready for like 55. He had done 53 and 54. And so, and because we were in a session that we couldn't see what was happening above us, we needed to just get as many successful lifts as we can. But 48 was going to make no difference versus 50. Like, it was not going to move us anywhere. So why were we going to go to 48? Well, this is for the team. Well, right. You just killed the kid's motivation.
Yeah.
Like, he's trying to get to 55, and you're telling him it's 48's for the team. Now there's no way you're going to get to 55. So, you can do some damage psychologically with an athlete, especially when we're talking about, the national teams. And I just saw in the last quad what was both perplexing and upsetting to me in stripping these athletes of trying to push them to their maximum capacities by pulling them down to a minimum. And that may be the approach for a beginner athlete, but you got to realize as you go down and they develop further along and they're higher level lifter, you've got different potential for that lifter, and you have to start adjusting the competition, the choices that you make in competition for their openers and their second and third attempts. And I think people watch the lifters that are higher caliber, and they just start to emulate that early on, not realizing that those lifters have developed through that whole process, and the coach has taken them through all of that. That they're not just going 2 for 6 or taking attempts that are inexplicable to you because you don't understand. You don't know what the records are. You don't know what the stipend numbers are. You don't know what world team qualification numbers look like. You start to misinterpret what they're doing and what the coaches are doing.
Yeah.
When I saw Amy trying to defend her position, my natural, visceral response was like, you don't have to justify yourself.
Well, of course she doesn't.
Just do what you know is right for your athlete. Oh, well, sure. Yeah, I get that.
Trust me, I talked her out of doing more.
When you start to actually justify it, you give people the sense that, one, they've gotten under your skin, but two, that they were somehow right, that you feel like you have to justify. Yeah, and I wouldn't even grant somebody that.
I agree. I don't care what anyone thinks about my attempt choices because it's none of their damn business.
Yeah.
And
Anyways.
with with Jessica's thing, she's won the American Open before. Like for someone who's at the world championship level, owns all the American records, 2 times over in a couple cases, winning the American Open is essentially meaningless, especially since the girl who beat her by 1 kilo not even lifting for the U.S. You know what I mean? So it was
she's ineligible.
Right. It was a very unique situation. Had it been another U.S. lifter, more likely, we probably would have just gone for the win. But the thing is, Jess had a rough year last year. She trained her ass off trying to make the Olympic team. She had, half a dozen incredibly high pressure, high stakes competitions back to back to back, and she was just burnt out. And so, since trials, she hasn't been training quite at full speed. She's just now kind of starting to ramp up. So, we went into the American Open like, we're just going to do what we do. We're not looking for big numbers. That's why, she opened, I think she only opened at like 85 in the snatch, which, normally she would open at 88 plus and, things like that. So, but then, with clean and jerks, it was like, well, she's looking pretty good. She's kind of loosening up now after snatches and things like that. So that 116 is doable. So why would we not go for 116 to break her own American record rather than go 114, only 2 kilos different to win the American Open, which for her at this point doesn't mean anything.
Well, here you're just coming back. I mean, that becomes a motivator for her. Like, it's a record. You didn't think, we didn't know what kind of shape you were really in.
Yeah,
same thing happened with Derek.
We did 22 over winning the American Open.
We went 22, 25 to break a record. What was the point of going any other number? But that becomes a major motivator for them.
Right. Like, and had they made it, though, everyone would have called us geniuses.
Oh, sure. And
then if they don't, Derek's was incredibly close. Jess cleaned the shit out of it, didn't make the jerk, but it's not like there was no chance of either of them making it. You know what I mean? The decision wasn't just completely stupid. I was ready to go a lot
lower with Derek. He was, I actually brought his opener down, which he was not happy about, because then he smoked first 2, and he's like, well, if you'd have left it, and it's like, well
then don't look so shitty in the back.
That's right. Like, your warm-up went like crap. He knew that. I was just like, we're just getting numbers on the board. And after he did 41, and he missed it, he wanted to go up, and I was like, not today. Like, today we just make a lift.
Right.
And so we did 41 again, and then we took a big jump to 48, which he cleaned and missed the jerk. So it was, sometimes you make one decision even within the same competition.
Right.
Like, normally I would let him go up if it looked like it was close. But, there was a point at which I was like, we're just going to put a total together first.
Sure.
But then once we that's not always the position that I have. Like, sometimes it's like, well, we really need this number. You're going to have to put the total together with this bigger number. So get your ass in gear and put a total together right now. And then we can move on from there.
Yes.
But, anyways, we've wasted a lot of time. I don't know if you call it wasted, but...
No, we didn't waste any time. We just completely changed the content of this episode from what was planned, and that's fine. This episode is now called The American Open and Competition Strategy.
Well, we have one question, right? The hand care question.
Well, we have lots of questions.
We want to get that in to act like we're giving some useful tips.
We'll throw in the hand care question. Why not?
It's fast.
Okay. Rhonda asks, and actually multiple people ask this, but Rhonda was the first one in the list that I found. What is your suggested regimen for hand care? Balance of keeping calluses but not having dry, nasty hands. Any specific products and tools you use? I have some ideas, but Ursula, you were eager to share some.
I am, because I gave
very
advice.
well-known Russian stuff.
Yeah, I gave some advice to a guy, and he sent me back a message and said, "I did what you said, and you were right." And I said, "I know." No, I'm kidding. He said, "I did what you said, and then I haven't had any tear since." This isn't like foolproof. You're never going to have another tear again. But it's the hand care regimen that I use, and I've used, that I learned from my ex-husband, who's Belarusian, and in fact, a lot of the Soviet lifters, do the same thing. So when you're in a hot shower, you want to be in a hot shower for about 20 minutes, you'll notice that your callus is kind of softened. And even if you have fingernails, sometimes you can kind of just take your fingernail and they'll bubble a little bit, like they look kind of whitish, and they're soft. We do this like once a week. You don't want to do it all the time, because the day after, I would do it like on a Saturday after you train, and then your hands are resting on Sunday. That way you don't go the next day and they're still a little soft. But you take a guarded razor after about 20 minutes in the shower, when their calluses have softened. You take a guarded razor. I like to use the ones with the little aloe strip, and you just run the razor with the guarded razor over your hands, and it will take that top layer off. And if you have like a little thickening at the crease of the metatarsal to the phalangeal like joint, you may want to like take the edge of it and get in there, because you're trying to flatten all the edges and make just a flat pad. It's the thickened edges from where you tear, because that's where the skin gets pulled on, and that thickened edge is where you'll see that rip. So you want to make sure you take down those thickened edges and make just like a flat pad of callus. But if you just run that over them and then kind of get into that little crease at where your metatarsal meets your phalanges, or the beginning of your finger, you'll get that, that thickened edge.
You're talking about feet right now.
When did I say tarsals? I'm sorry. Yeah, the metacarpal to the phalange.
Rub it right where the body of your foot meets your fingers.
That's right. That's what you do. Did I say tarsals?
Yeah, both times. That's okay. We still.
I'm sorry. Y'all know what we're talking about.
I just am trying to prevent people from getting in there and leaving nasty comments.
But if you just do that, then and then go over the middle of your hand, and then if you have them on your fingers themselves, you might want to do those too, because I get some between the bottom two joints. A lot of people will get them in that little area as well, and I just go over them, and I do that about once a week. I still do it, and I barely have any calluses, but I try to keep them flat so that they don't rip. And of course, I don't know if you're crossfitting what that's going to do to your hands, but I know for weightlifting this shit works. Yeah. And that's basically the hand care regimen that I use. I don't pumice or sand or all that kind of stuff. Other people do, and if you like that, that's fine. But this has worked wonderfully, and it's what I teach my athletes to do. It's the advice that I give, and it's always worked for me. And I know a lot of really, really high international caliber lifters that's exactly how they keep their hands in good shape.
So, my approach is a little different. I mean, what you just described definitely works very well, and if people like doing that, go for it. I actually prefer sanding my hand. I hate pumice stones. I think they're stupid and they don't work. I don't like those callus shavers. I just have little squares of like 200 grit sandpaper, and if once those calluses get rough, like Ursula said, it's those rough edges. That's what catches on the bar and causes a tear. So if you take that 200 grit sandpaper and you just rub it over a few times, you're going to smooth that out completely. It takes 30 seconds at the most. You don't have to sit in a shower for 20 minutes, which, sometimes people like doing that, but I got other shit I'd rather do. And that way you get rid of all those smooth edges while you maintain that tough skin that you want there. And then get Cornhuskers lotion. It's dirt cheap. It's not like an oily kind of thing, and put that on a couple times a day, especially after you train. Wash the chalk out of your hands, first of all.
Yeah, that's desiccating.
Yeah, don't leave chalk in your skin overnight. Well, it's just going to dry you out, turn you into jerky. And then put that Cornhuskers lotion on after you train. If your hands are really taking a beating, put it on right before you go to bed too. And that stuff, it not only will help heal it, but it kind of toughens the skin up a little bit too. So between those two things, I haven't torn a callus in probably like 6 or 7 years. And I never snatch with straps, none of that stuff. I'll do multiple rep hang stuff with bare hands, and I just don't tear. So if you do that preventative kind of stuff and you really take care of those calluses before they get to a point where they're going to tear, you're going to be just fine. What you don't want to do is be constantly playing catch up and trying to repair holes in your hands.
Right. Yeah, that's the wrong approach.
Yeah.
You have to be proactive.
Yes.
You can care.
All right. Well.
All right. Now we've taught everybody how to have baby butt hands. Actually, they're not baby butt hands. You want to keep your calluses. We're both telling you methods that you'll keep a low pad that will be functional. Because if you do go down and, that's what I was saying, like you don't want to make them completely raw or flat. Like you need those calluses. They're there for a reason.
Yes. All right.
All right.
Well, that's all. That's it for us. That's a wrap. No more.
Episode 12. I'll just mark out these questions and put 13 on them. How's that?
There you go. Yeah, the rest of you guys will get to you next time. All right, guys. Thank you for listening again. Even if you didn't like this episode, go and post a review or click some star things, preferably all 5 of them on iTunes or Google Play or whatever you listen to this stuff on, and we would very much appreciate that. And then we'll have more interesting, fascinating, hilarious content for you next time. Can I
plug my event again? I have the Iron Bromance coming up. It's not just a weightlifting meet. It's a snatch, jerk, and clean competition with barbell challenges afterwards that are a minute or less in duration. If you go to my Instagram at Texas Barbell Club, I have the link in my bio, and it gives you the full write-up. We're working on getting prizes from Nike and Caffeine and Kilos, and we have a couple of other Harbinger and some other Naturally Fit and some other companies that are stepping forward to provide prizes. There will be a fairly modest cash prize compared to what you get at big competitions. But if you love barbell work and you don't want to have to run, I think our title page is like Iron Bromance, fuck a burpee. You won't have to do burpees or wall balls or run or row, but you will be challenged in the lifts as well as some muscular endurance capacity work as well. So it's going to be a blast. It's at Red Side CrossFit on February 4th. And again, go to at Texas Barbell Club Instagram and in the bio, and you can read all about it. And it's here in the Austin, Texas area.
Cool. Go sign up, Texans.
Yeah.
All right.
I think you're strong.
We'll talk to you guys soon.
All right.
You'll miss us. We'll be back. See ya.